Hey there folks, hope you're doing well, getting some paint on your minis. Today we're talking about 10 useful paints. That is not my top 10 paints, these are paints that I find straight up useful. So let's not waste any time and just get straight to it. Here we go.
I'm so sick of this guy, I may just shave my brush into a shiv. Ugh.
Number 1 on my list is Ice Yellow by Vallejo. A lot of people might know about this one already, but this is a great paint for building up highlights from your base colors. A lot of people might use a white or a gray or something like that to build up their highlights. If you use something that has a little bit of saturation in it, your base color will not lose as much saturation as you're building up towards that higher value. A lot of lighter colors can be used to build up your highlights and maintain some saturation, but yellow has really done a lot of work for at least myself. But Ice Yellow in particular, from what I've heard, has a little bit of fluo paint mixed into it. And what that results in is a slightly brighter obtainable value of your base color when using this to highlight. So it does work, man. Like this paint is awesome. Very good. I use it in a lot of my projects ever since I started using it, which is more recently, but the difference was quite night and day. Before that, I used Pale Sand by Pro Acryl, which is also a great option, but I do feel that I get just a smidge brighter when building up my highlights using Ice Yellow by Vallejo. So great paint, check it out if you haven't. Number 2 on my list, everybody needs a good white in their collection. So of course I've chosen White Scar by Citadel. And I'm just joking, that's a terrible paint. Just gonna make sure that didn't splatter everywhere. We're good. Everybody needs a good white paint in their collection. White is notorious for just being kind of a hard paint to work with because the pigment size is a lot larger than other paints. So on my list, I've added Bold Titanium White. This is a great paint. From what I've heard, there's a little bit of titanium mixed into the paint, which really helps with its coverage. And Pro Acryl paints, they're all like a little bit on the watery side, but for a white, like that's a great thing to have because it's just nice and smooth, it flows easily. This white paint will cover in about 3 coats over black, which is pretty significant. That's the same for a lot of Pro Acryl's paints, including like their yellows, for example. Just a great paint line, but the white in particular is just fantastic. I haven't found one that is any better than this, really, except for maybe my honorable mention, which goes to Chimera, their paint, the white. This is another great white. It's kind of similar to the one by Pro Acryl, but it's a little thicker in consistency. Chimera's paints are all like single pigment paints, which is awesome. This just covers pretty similarly to the one by Pro Acryl. So both great white paints to check out. If I had to choose one, it'd probably be Bold Titanium White. If you have a favorite white, let me know which one it is down below, because I mean, white is white and it ain't right. We need a better one, so let me know. Number 3 on my list, well, on the topic of white paints, I have here Apothecary White by Citadel. If I'm ever needing to paint up white quickly, this is kind of a lifesaver at times. All it is essentially like gray water, but it works really well in a pinch just to shade your white. You basically just base your model in white and then you just wash over it with this contrast paint. Works a little better if you've got like a zenithal going too. But just an awesome paint for quickly shading some white. It's not going to be something that you use if you're trying to paint white to like a high level. This is kind of like a quick trick kind of thing for painting fast. But if you ever need to, this is just an awesome little gray water bottle that does the trick. Nice and quick. Easy peasy. Number 3 on my list. This one's a little bit different. This is Tamiya Panel Liner. This one is black, but it comes in other colors as well. What this is what it says on the bottle. It's a panel liner. So essentially this is an enamel paint, and you take the lid off and it's got this little brush there. And the paint itself has a very high viscosity, low viscosity. The paint flows very, very well. So you take the little brush on the cap and you just tap it to your panel lines and it runs right through and darkens them up nicely. It works especially well if you first gloss coat your model, because that way it reduces the surface tension, so this flows a lot better into those recesses. Additionally, the gloss coat is going to give you the advantage of when you go to use like white spirits or whatever you're going to use to clean up your enamel paint, because you are not really in any kind of danger of ruining the paint below the varnish. I've used this a lot without a varnish and haven't had many problems, but if you're working in very thin layers on your model, having that extra varnish there just helps a lot, and it really just makes this flow nicer. You might get a little mess outside of your panel lines, but yeah, just use that white spirits, wipe the surface, it'll come right off and it'll remain in those recesses, and it just looks very nice. So this is just a super handy tool to have in your paint collection. Tamiya panel liner, good stuff. Number 5, so everybody needs some good metallics. There's a lot of bad ones out there, and what I've kind of landed on is the Scale 75 range of metallics. In particular, I really like their black metal and Necro Gold. These are just two super useful colors that just apply very well, have high coverage. The black metal is probably the one I use the most. This is kind of like my base coat for pretty much all of my silvers, because it's just this really, really dark black, like coal-ish silver. And it's just really, really nice. It gives you a good place to start from, so you can work up with highlighting your TMM metals. So a very nice, useful metallic. The Necro Gold is awesome as well for working with gold. It kind of does the same job as the black metal, but it's a little like dirtier and older looking. It's a really nice color. I use it all the time. Their Dwarven Gold is really nice as well. Viking Gold is decent, but all their metallics really are quite solid. So these are the ones I've landed on, but if you have metallics that you prefer, that are your go-tos, let me know down below. I'm always looking for new metallics. It's something that's a little tricky sometimes to get those nice colors that you need in a metallic and to work up to highlights and stuff like that. So any metallics you know about that I might find useful, let me know. Let everybody else know in the comments. Number 6, so on the topic of Scale 75, another paint that I like that is kind of a metallic, but they don't call it that, is their Brilli White. Brilli White. They call this an FX fluor paint. So it's like a metallic that has a bit of fluo in it, I guess. On the palette, it looks like white metallic, like as white of a metallic as you're probably gonna get, or at least that I have seen. This is really good for just using as point and edge highlights on TMM metallics, true metallics, that you want to get to a really bright value. I haven't found a metallic paint that is as bright or as white as this one. So yeah, this has been very useful for me. It also has kind of a pearlescent shimmer to it, so you can use it like over a surface to give it this kind of pearly vibe. I haven't found a way to use it nicely to cover a full area. Maybe this would work through an airbrush. I'd like to try that. But just as a highlight for metallics, this is just super useful for like the pin highlights, just a little bit to get it like near white, but still have that little bit of metallic shimmer to it. So Brilli White, whatever this is by Scale 75, is just really cool, about as high of a metallic highlight as you're going to get. Unless you guys know something, let me know down below. But this is my experience. We're talking about me right now. Okay, all right, let's move on. Number 7 on my list is a total beast of a paint. This is the Red. Yes, the Red by Chimera. And it is named that way because it is the red. This is the most saturated red that I think I have used. And it's just very smooth, single pigment, because that's what Chimera does. But it's just very, very saturated, very, very bright red. This is great as a glaze over your other reds to really bring up the value, or just using it like straight out of the bottle. Chimera paints have a lot of transparency to them, some more than others, so you will experience a bit of that here, which can be a good thing. You work up those slow layers until you reach the maximum value you want to get to, which is awesome for things like blending and glazing and etc. But this is the red that will do the most work out there. Like, it is amazing. I think even James from Siege Studios, who loves his Blood Angels red old school Citadel paint that is apparently like the brightest red out there, I think this would give him a run for his money, because this stuff is just awesome. Very saturated red by Chimera, the red. Check it out. It's named that for a reason. Number 8. So number 8 on my list is a classic. Everybody probably knows this one, but it's on my list for a reason. This is Citadel's contrast paint, Snakebite Leather. This is just great. If you're painting miniatures, if you're painting an army and you have a lot of leather to work through, like, you can just have your white prime base coat or zenithal base coat, slap this on, and you get a nice leathery look with shading and highlight like pretty much built in. You can add a little bit more manually, or you can just leave it as is and you're good to go. This is also really nice through an airbrush. It gives this nice like natural brown yellow tone that's good for just warming up a scene or adding a little bit of like kind of natural tone to something. It's really good as a glaze as well. But yeah, like this is just a super useful paint for painting fast, airbrushing natural colors, glazing. Just a great paint. Nothing else in my collection is really doing all the things that this can possibly do. So most of you probably already have this. If you haven't tried it through an airbrush, I would highly suggest it. It's just so smooth and such a nice tone. And if you don't have this already, pick it up. Like, this is your leather speed painting master machine. This is a beautiful tonal airbrush kind of shifting paint for those natural tones. It's just a great paint. So pick it up, give it a shot if you haven't, and if you already have it, play around with it a little bit more, because it can do more than just speed paint leather. Number 9 on my list is a fluo paint by Scale 75. This is Techno Green. Now, we talked about fluo paint earlier, Brilli White by Scale 75. That's kind of a bit different. These bright colored fluo paints are amazing for amplifying existing colors on your miniature. So a lot of people pick up fluo paints and they use it right out of the bottle and expect to just get this bright color right off the bat. But the thing about these paints is that they have a high transparency to them, so they really rely on the layers below that you apply in order to kind of let them shine through and brighten everything up. So the way you use this is, let's say you start off with a green layer for this one in particular, but they have other amazing colors. You start off with your dark green and you work it up to as bright of a green as you can get. And then you can either glaze this over the top in multiple layers to get to the brightness you want, or you take those brightest highlights on your green and you paint them white, and then you glaze this over top. And that white will add additional brightness shining through the fluo paint to really just amplify it, and get it to a point that you probably would have a really hard time achieving without a fluo paint. So the Techno Green in particular is one I love. Their orange and yellows are pretty good as well. There may be other good fluo paints out there. Let me know below. I haven't tried a ton of them, but I've had great results with the Scale 75 stuff. Darker colors don't really work as well in my experience with fluo paints and in my research. So let me know down below. You got better ones? You tell me and I'll go buy them. Number 10. Why isn't there a number 10 on your table in front of you? Well, I'm not hiding a paint. Number 10 is actually use whatever paints you want, honestly. The thing about this hobby is that we all get into it from different places in our lives, different places around the world. We're surrounded by different people. We're all gonna be exposed to this hobby in a different way. You may start with only army painters, somebody else starting with Citadel, somebody else Chimera, whatever. And all those people are gonna have their favorite paints out of those lines, especially early on in the hobby when your exposure is so minimal. But on top of that, different places around the world have different paints more available to them. So while some people are only exposed to like 3, 4, whatever paint lines, and people on the other side of the world are using XYZ, they're gonna have completely different opinions on what is or isn't a good paint. Different things are gonna just work better in different hands as well. For some people, you know, Army Painter is gonna be amazing. For others, they're gonna hate it. Same with Pro Acryl. Like, I love Pro Acryl, I love Scale 75. I think they're both amazing lines. A lot of people hate Scale 75 because of the gel medium that they use. It makes it a little bit different to work with, but I think they're great paints after some time spent with them, just getting used to the workflow. So yeah, number 10 is just use whatever works for you, because we're all gonna have our different exposures, our different favorites, our, you know, different processes, different ways we approach things. So use what you gotta use. And let everybody else know down below what your favorites are. What's your go-to brown, red, blue, white, black, all the colors. I could keep listing them, but I mean, you guys are just gonna, you probably closed this video by now anyways, so whatever. But, you know, just paint. Keep painting, use whatever does the trick. Listen to other people's recommendations, because, you know, they might know better than me, they might know better than you, who knows. There's all kinds of cool stuff out there in this hobby. Some of it's gonna help us, some of it's just gonna do nothing. It's gonna do nothing for me. So yeah, just try stuff, see what works, and let others know. Thanks for watching my video. I hope it was somewhat helpful. Comment, like, dislike, subscribe, maybe. I'm still a small channel, so I notice it all, and I super appreciate it. So until next time, paint today for better tomorrow. Peace out. My son has been crying upstairs this entire thing. I don't know if you can hear him right now. It's very loud. It was hard to shoot this. I'm gonna go back upstairs and make sure he's okay. Bye! Bye. Yeah. No! No! The paints went everywhere. Also, I hurt my knee. Oh.